I always believed I was ordinary, just another face in the crowd, another life lived without consequence. That changed the moment I opened the envelope. The DNA test was supposed to be a joke, something I did on a whim after a night of curiosity-driven Googling. Everyone was doing it. Discover your ancestry. Uncover your heritage. It was marketed as a fun exercise in self-discovery, a way to connect with the past. But what I found inside that envelope shattered every notion of who I thought I was. I sat at the kitchen table, the morning light filtering through the blinds, casting strange patterns across the wooden surface. My fingers trembled as I unfolded the paper. At first, the results seemed normal, percentages assigned to various geographical regions, the way these tests usually break down lineage. But then, at the very bottom, in bold red letters, was a message that made my breath hitch in my throat. Error, anomalous DNA detected. Further analysis required. Anomalous? What did that even mean? I reread the words, hoping I had misunderstood, but they remained the same, unchanging and terrifying. My mind immediately searched for logical explanations. A mistake in the test? A mix-up at the lab? But as I scrolled through the attached data, my stomach twisted into knots. There was a section labeled Unidentified Genetic Markers. A long string of numbers and letters filled the space, sequences that didn't align with anything found in the human genome. My heart pounded as I scoured the internet, searching for similar cases, for some kind of rationalization. But all I found were cryptic forums filled with conspiracy theories about hybrid experiments and extraterrestrial tampering. That's when the email arrived. A subject line so stark it made my skin prickle. Do not speak of this to anyone. My blood ran cold. The sender was anonymous, no identifiable email address, just a black void where the usual information should be. Against my better judgment, I clicked it. The message was brief. You have taken a test you were never meant to take. Destroy the results. If you wish to know the truth, come alone to 314 Hollow Oak Drive at midnight. Do not tell anyone. I stared at the screen, my pulse thundering in my ears. Who was this? How did they know about my test? A rational voice in my head told me to delete the email, to ignore it, to move on. But another part of me, the part that had always felt a little out of place, a little different, screamed for answers. That night, I left my apartment without telling a soul. The address led me to an abandoned house at the edge of town, hidden beneath the gnarled arms of ancient oak trees. The air smelled damp, thick with the scent of decaying wood. My footsteps crunched against the gravel driveway as I approached the front door. The house was silent. No lights, no movement. Just an oppressive stillness that made my skin crawl. For a moment, I hesitated. Every horror movie I had ever watched screamed at me to turn back, but my feet carried me forward. I had to know. I pushed the door open. It groaned on its hinges, revealing a dark, empty foyer. The air inside was stale, thick with dust and something else, something metallic. The scent of blood? A single flickering light bulb illuminated the hallway. As I stepped inside, the door slammed shut behind me. I spun around, my heart hammering against my ribs. My breath came in shallow gasps as I tried to steady myself. Then, from the shadows, a voice. You shouldn't have come. It was deep, guttural, almost inhuman. A figure emerged from the darkness. Tall, impossibly tall. Its features were obscured, but the way it moved sent ice down my spine. Smooth, fluid, as if it wasn't bound by human limitations. I tried to speak, but my throat clenched shut. You are not who you think you are, the voice continued. And now it is time you learn the truth. Before I could react, something cold and sharp pressed against the back of my neck. A sudden wave of dizziness crashed over me, my vision darkening at the edges. The last thing I saw before the world went black was a figure leaning over me, its eyes glowing otherworldly, boring into my soul. I woke up in a cold, sterile room. The ceiling above me was smooth and metallic, reflecting the harsh white lights that buzzed overhead. My wrists and ankles were strapped down, metal restraints digging into my skin. Panic surged through me. I struggled against the bindings, but they didn't budge. Good. You're awake. The same voice. Calm, almost amused. A figure stepped into my line of vision, now clearly visible in the artificial light. My breath hitched. It wasn't human. Its skin was a shade too pale, almost translucent. Its limbs were too long. Its fingers tipped with something that looked like claws. But the most unnerving thing was its eyes, large, reflective, void of anything resembling human emotion. "You have questions," it said, "and soon you will have answers." I couldn't speak. My mind was a whirlwind of terror and confusion. The creature, or whatever it was, reached for a small device on a nearby table. With a soft hum, the air around us shimmered, as if reality itself was bending. And then the images began. Flashes of places I had never seen before. Towers of obsidian stretching into a sky filled with twin suns. Vast oceans of liquid silver. Beings like the one before me, moving in perfect synchronization. Memories, but not mine. Or were they? A deep, resonant voice echoed through my mind, not spoken aloud, but imprinted directly into my thoughts. "You are not human. You never were." My breath came in ragged gasps. The images, the memories, they felt real. Too real. The being watched me, its expression unreadable. "Your DNA test was merely the beginning," it said. "You were never meant to know the truth. But now there is no going back." The room around me seemed to pulse, the walls shifting, twisting into something else entirely. I wasn't a hospital. I wasn't even on Earth. And for the first time, I realized a terrifying truth. I wasn't just different. I didn't belong here at all. The room pulsed with an unnatural glow, shifting like a living organism wrapped around me. The walls no longer felt solid. They rippled like liquid metal, adjusting to some unseen force. My breathing quickened, heart pounding as reality twisted into something unfamiliar, something wrong. The creature stood before me, watching. Its oversized, reflective eyes absorbed me, assessing my reactions. I felt exposed, like it could see deeper than my flesh, into my very essence. I tried to steady my voice. "What are you?" A flicker of something unreadable passed through its expression. Then, without moving its lips, a voice resonated inside my head. "The correct question is, what are you?" A cold wave rolled through me. I yanked at my restraints, my muscles screaming in resistance. "No, you're lying. This is some kind of sick experiment. Let me go." The creature tilted its head, almost curiously. "You feel human because you have lived among them, but your DNA betrays the illusion." The air around us rippled again, and suddenly, the room wasn't a room at all. The walls melted into a vast, open expanse, a world unlike anything I had ever seen. It was endless. A sky filled with swirling nebulae stretched infinitely above, casting shifting hues of violet, blue, and silver. Beneath me, a smooth, glass-like surface reflected the cosmos, as if I were standing on the very fabric of the universe itself. The stars pulsed like slow heartbeats, bathing everything in their ethereal glow. My body trembled. Where am I? Home. The word sent a dagger of fear through me. No, this couldn't be. This wasn't real. I forced my mind to reject what I was seeing, to anchor myself to logic. You're messing with my head. This is an illusion, a simulation. The creature's gaze bore into me. If that is what helps you cope, then believe it. But the truth does not change. I clenched my fists. Then prove it. The air shimmered again, and suddenly, I was somewhere else. Not a memory, not a dream. I was there. I stood in a vast metallic chamber, impossibly large, stretching into infinity. Rows of towering, bioluminescent structures pulsed with eerie blue light. The hum of unseen energy vibrated through my bones. Figures moved among the glowing towers. Dozens of them. No, hundreds. And they looked like me. Tall, lean, their elongated fingers hovering over intricate consoles of light and motion. Their skin shimmered with a faint, iridescent sheen, and their eyes, those same deep, abyssal eyes, reflected something far beyond human understanding. They turned to look at me. Recognition flickered through them, like an unspoken connection surging between us. Then, a voice. No, not one voice, many, overlapping, harmonizing, creating something both beautiful and unsettling. You have returned. A deep pressure built inside my head. My pulse hammered as flashes of memories, ones I had never experienced before, crashed over me. A planet bathed in darkness, but not in fear. A civilization thriving in the silence of space. A mission, a purpose, the departure. I gasped, the chamber around me spinning. No, this can't be real. I was born on Earth. I grew up on Earth. The voices murmured in unison. No, you were placed on Earth. Placed. The word sent a jolt of cold through my veins. Then, I was back in a metallic room, strapped to the table, gasping for breath. I felt changed, as if something inside me had shifted, as if a part of me that had been buried for years was now rising to the surface. The creature studied me carefully. The human world has confined you, suppressed what you are. That test you took, it was not a mistake. It was the beginning of your awakening. I shook my head, sweat beating at my temples. I don't want this. I never asked for this. The being stepped closer. Your desires are irrelevant. Your blood calls to you. I swallowed hard. And if I refuse? The creature paused. Then, for the first time, its voice carried something that resembled pity. You cannot refuse what you were born to be. The days blurred together after that. I was no longer in a cell, but I wasn't free either. The facility or ship or whatever it was had corridors that twisted and reformed as I walked them. No doors, no windows, just endless, shifting passageways. And yet, I never got lost. Something inside me understood. I began seeing things I had never noticed before. Energy waves that pulsed through the walls. A language, no, a frequency that whispered at the edges of my mind. I could hear things, sense things that no human ever could. And worst of all, I didn't feel afraid anymore. I felt like I belonged. But then, on what I estimated was the fourth day, something changed. The walls trembled. The lights dimmed. A deep, droning alarm sounded through the corridors, an alien frequency that vibrated to the marrow of my bones. The creature, my captor, my guide, appeared before me, its posture rigid. For the first time, I saw something that almost looked like concern in its reflective eyes. What's happening? I asked. It didn't answer. Instead, it reached out, touching two fingers to my forehead. And suddenly, I saw the earth distant, spinning in the abyss. A pulse of red light, a warning, a distress signal, emanating from its surface. And then something else. Something coming. Something searching. Not human. Not us. Something worse. The creature removed its fingers from my skin, stepping back. Its voice, once calm and knowing, was now urgent. You were placed on Earth to remain hidden. It hesitated. But they have found you. A sinking feeling coiled in my stomach. Who? The alarm's wail intensified. The creature exhaled sharply, something close to frustration flashing through its alien features. The ones who took you from us. The ones who weren't my real parents. The ones who had hidden me away for reasons I no longer understood. And now, they were coming back to claim me. The alarm's wail deepened, vibrating through my bones like a scream that had no mouth. The walls of the ship or facility or whatever this place was trembled, pulsing with an eerie luminescence. It was as if the very structure of reality around me was struggling to hold itself together. I turned to the being that had brought me here, my so-called guide, the one who had peeled back the veil of my humanity and revealed the terrifying truth beneath. Who are they? I asked, my voice unsteady. The creature's reflective eyes darkened. Your captors, the ones who took you from us. They are not human either, but they have lived among them for centuries. I swallowed the lump in my throat. And they're coming for me? A rumble coursed through the air. The answer was obvious. They know you have awakened, the creature said, and they will not let you remain free. Free. The word barely had meaning to me anymore. I wasn't free. I had never been free. My entire life had been a lie, shaped by forces beyond my understanding. My supposed parents, the ones who had raised me, loved me, and given me my name, were they even real, or were they something else entirely? A sudden flash of movement caught my eye. The walls of the room began to shift, folding inward, revealing what looked like a corridor. The creature took a step forward, its voice a silent echo in my mind. "We have little time. If you stay, they will find you." I hesitated. Why should I trust you? I demanded. You kidnapped me, restrained me. The being's expression did not change, because they are worse. The air around us flickered. A distant hum, sharp and menacing, crackled in the distance. "They are here." I didn't have a choice. I ran. The corridor twisted as I moved, its walls alive with shifting patterns of light. I could hear my own breath, ragged and uneven, echoing unnaturally in the space around me. I wasn't even sure if my feet were touching solid ground anymore. The alien being ran beside me, effortlessly gliding through the ever-changing path. "They won't stop," I said between gasps. "Will they?" No. The confirmation sent a cold spike through my chest. I had grown up thinking I was human, that I was normal, and now I was being hunted by beings that had hidden me for my entire life. What do they want with me? I demanded. The alien didn't answer. Instead, it raised a hand. The corridor before us split. One path leading deeper into the ship, the other stretching toward a shimmering veil of energy. "They will breach this place soon," the creature said. "You must leave." I took a step back, suddenly wary. Leave? Where? A flicker of something unreadable passed through its gaze. "Home." I felt my stomach twist. "You mean Earth?" The being hesitated. Then, softly, "For now," I turned to the glowing rift. It pulsated like a living thing, an open wound in the air itself. Beyond it, I could see the vague outline of a place I recognized, a dark alleyway, rain falling in sheets, the neon glow of a familiar city. It was my city. My breath hitched. "You want me to just go back? Like nothing happened? You must remain hidden. If they take you, there will be no return." The being turned its head suddenly, its posture rigid. A sound, low, guttural, echoed through the corridor. I didn't need to be told what it meant. They had arrived. Something burst through the far end of the corridor. A figure, tall, slender, and disturbingly humanoid. But its skin wasn't right. It shimmered, shifting between textures, between faces. It was wearing my father's face. Then my mother's. Then my own. A sound like static filled the air, a whispering that wasn't meant for human ears. "Come home, child." I froze. That voice, it was them. But it wasn't. They stepped forward, their movements unnatural, their limbs bending at impossible angles. Their eyes, no longer human, gleamed with something ancient and predatory. The alien beside me moved fast. It raised its arm, and the air rippled, a sudden burst of energy surging toward the intruder. But they didn't move. They let the energy hit them. And then they absorbed it. The creature beside me stiffened. "Go. Now." But I couldn't move, because the thing wearing my parents' faces was smiling at me. Not a warm smile. Not even a human one. A predator's grin. "You've been gone long enough." I took a step back, my mind screaming. "No, this isn't real. This isn't happening." Then they took another step forward, their bodies shifting, unraveling into something grotesque. Something wrong. I had no time to think. No time to question. I turned and threw myself into the portal. The city hit me like a punch to the gut. The air was damp, the neon signs blurred in the downpour. My feet slammed onto wet pavement, my breath coming in ragged gasps. I was back. A car honked somewhere in the distance. The smell of rain and asphalt grounded me, but my mind still spun. I turned wildly, searching. Where was the portal? Where was the being? Nothing. The alley behind me was empty, silent, as if I had never left. But I knew better. I wasn't safe. Not yet. A shadow moved at the end of the alleyway. A figure, watching. I felt my blood turn to ice. It was them. They had followed me, and they weren't going to stop. The rain beat down in heavy sheets, washing away the filth on the pavement. But it couldn't wash away the fear that clung to me like a second skin. I stood there, breath ragged, heart hammering against my ribs. The alley was empty, or so it seemed, but I knew better. I had seen the shadow move, seen something watching me from the other side of the street. The thing that had followed me through the portal. The thing that wore my face like a mask. I took a slow step backward, the cold water seeping into my shoes. The city was alive around me. Cars honking, people shouting from storefronts, neon signs flickering to the misty air. But none of it felt real. What did it matter if there were people? They wouldn't help me. They wouldn't even see it. Because the things hunting me, the things that had raised me as their own, could hide in plain sight. I clenched my fists, forcing my breath to steady. I needed to move. Now, I turned sharply and pushed forward, slipping into the throngs of people walking the wet streets. I moved quickly, blending in, my pulse thrumming in my ears. But the sense of being watched never left. I weaved through the crowd, keeping my head down, but every so often I felt it, that unnatural shift in the air, that moment where the world seemed to flicker like a bad signal. They were still here, and they weren't far behind. I took a sharp turn into a subway entrance, my feet splashing down the steps 2 at a time. The platform was nearly empty at this hour, just a few scattered passengers waiting for the next train. I risked a glance behind me. Nothing. Had I lost them? I exhaled, forcing my shoulders to relax. Maybe I was being paranoid. Maybe. A sudden chill slithered down my spine. A tall man stood near the edge of the platform. He was dressed in a crisp black suit, his posture too rigid, too perfect. The way he stood, the way his head tilted slightly as if listening to something unheard, it sent a shudder through me. His eyes met mine, and then his face changed. It didn't shift like normal human expressions. It warped, stretching and pulling into something else entirely. Something with too many eyes. Something that wasn't meant to exist in this world. My stomach twisted. Run. The train's headlights flickered in the distance, the rumble of its approach vibrating through the platform. I didn't wait. I turned and sprinted before it could reach me. The tunnel walls blurred as I ran, the air thick with the scent of damp concrete and something metallic. My breath came in shallow, desperate gasps. I wasn't sure where I was going. All I knew was that I couldn't stop, but the thing was following. I heard the footsteps behind me, but they weren't human footsteps. They were too light, too fast, like something flickering between this reality and another. I pushed harder, my legs burning. The tunnel curved ahead, and I spotted a maintenance door. Without thinking, I lunged for it, yanking it open and throwing myself inside. The door slammed shut behind me. Darkness swallowed me whole. The space was narrow, claustrophobic. My breaths came sharp and ragged, my back pressed against a damp, cold metal wall. I strained to listen. The footsteps had stopped. Silence. But I knew better than to believe I was safe. I reached into my pocket, fumbling for my phone. I needed light. The screen flickered. And then it went black. My pulse stuttered. Not now. I banged the phone against my palm, willing to turn back on. The light came back, but the screen was wrong. It wasn't my home screen. It wasn't even displaying any apps. It was a video feed. And it was me, a live video of myself, standing in this exact spot, in the darkness. Only, I wasn't alone. Something was behind me. I felt the air turn cold. Slowly, my breath trembling, I turned my head, and I saw it, the thing that had followed me, the thing that had taken my face. It was standing inches away, its head tilted at an unnatural angle. Its eyes, they weren't eyes at all. They were shifting pools of void, reflecting something not of this world. It opened its mouth, and then I heard my mother's voice. "Come home, sweetheart. We've missed you." I screamed. I don't remember how I got out. All I remember is running. The next thing I knew, I was outside, stumbling onto the street, rain still hammering down around me. My chest heaved as I tried to pull in air. I was losing my mind. I had to be. But as I turned the corner, gasping for breath, I saw something worse. Across the street, near the flickering light of a convenience store, stood a group of them. Not just one, not just two, an entire group. And every single one of them had my face. The rain pounded against the pavement, Each drop, like a ticking second clock, winding down to my inevitable end. My body screamed for rest, but there was no time for exhaustion, because across the street, beneath the flickering light of the convenience store, they stood. They all had my face. Not just one, not just two, a crowd of them, each identical to me, yet wrong. Their eyes shimmered, hollow and predatory, their expressions flickering like a bad signal. Some were smiling, some were watching in eerie stillness, but they were all waiting. For me, a strangled breath left my lips. My legs refused to move. This wasn't real. It couldn't be real. One of them took a step forward. Then another. I turned and ran. The streets blurred past me, a mess of neon lights, rain, and confusion. My lungs burned, my heart hammering a frantic rhythm inside my chest. I didn't know where I was going, only that I had to get away. Footsteps echoed behind me. Not mine, theirs. I turned sharply into another alley, my shoes skidding on the wet concrete. I slammed into a dumpster, barely catching myself before I fell. The alley was a dead end. I spun around, and they were already there. A wall of me, standing in eerie silence, blocking my escape. The tallest one stepped forward, its lips curling into a smile. My smile. "You can't run from yourself," it whispered. The others joined in, their voices overlapping, twisting into a cacophony of my own voice repeating the same phrase. "You can't run from yourself. You can't run from yourself. You can't." "Shut up," I shouted, pressing my hands over my ears. But the voices weren't just coming from them. They were coming from inside my head. My skull felt like it was splitting open, my vision blurring. I stumbled backward, hitting the brick wall. My breathing came in ragged gasps. Then, just as suddenly as it started, the voices stopped, and the tallest figure stepped forward. "It's time to go home." I shook my head, every instinct in my body screaming to reject their words. "I am home," I spat. "This is my home. This is my life." The thing that wore my face didn't flinch. "No," it said simply. "This is your cage." A deep hum vibrated through the air. The rain around us seemed to pause, suspended in midair. The neon lights flickered wildly, casting everything in an unnatural glow. I clutched my head, dizziness washing over me. The world itself seemed to glitch, fragments of reality warping at the edges of my vision. Then I saw it. The city around me wasn't real. Not entirely. Beneath the illusion of streets and lights and people, something else lurked. Shapes, vast and impossible, shifting beneath the fabric of existence. I saw glimpses of them. Towering figures with too many limbs, structures made of living metal, and stars that pulse like beating hearts. I was never supposed to see this. I pressed myself against the brick wall, nausea twisting my stomach. What is this?" I gasped. The tallest one smiled. "The truth." I shook my head violently, trying to force the images away. No, I'm human. I was raised here. I grew up here. You were placed here. It corrected. They took you from us. They made you believe you were one of them. They hid the truth in your bones, in your blood, in your mind. I was trembling now, my hands curled into fists. "Why?" The others answered in unison, their voices a perfect copy of mine. "Because you are not meant to be here." The tallest figure stepped closer, so close I could see the shifting patterns in its eyes. "You were always meant to return," it murmured. "And now the illusion is breaking. Soon, your body will reject this world. You can already feel it, can't you?" My knees buckled. I could feel it. The way the air felt different against my skin. The way my heart no longer beat the same way. The way the world itself felt wrong, like I was standing in a place that no longer belonged to me. "No," I whispered, shaking my head. "I don't want to go." The figure tilted its head. "You don't have a choice." The world shuddered. The rain began to fall upward, reversing as if time itself had snapped. The streetlights stretched unnaturally, the colors bleeding together into something unrecognizable. And then, the sky ripped open, a gaping tear in the fabric of reality. Stretching wide above the city, revealing an endless void beyond. It was not darkness. It was something deeper, something that swallowed all logic and reason. And within it, something was waiting, a presence, a mind, something calling me home. I felt my body lift off the ground, weightless, pulled toward the rift. The others, my clones, watched in silence as the force took hold. The tallest one spoke one last time. "It is time." I opened my mouth to scream, and then silence. I woke up to darkness. No city, no rain, no people, just endless void. I tried to move, but there was no body to move. I tried to breathe, but there was no air to breathe. I was nowhere, and yet I was not alone. Something loomed beyond the black, watching me, studying me. And then, in a voice that shook the very fabric of my existence, it spoke. "Welcome home, child."